Allegations of voter fraud fly at Michigan hearings. The Durham probe is now a special counsel. More lockdown hypocrisy in California. And Comey gets a Columbia U gig. Welcome, friends, to the Buck Sexton Show. The biggest question in politics right now in America, and therefore I think you could argue the whole world, is who really won this election? I know the media and the Democrats and a whole lot of folks are saying that this is not a real question. It's all over with. We all know. That's what they tell us. It's all done. And any allegations of fraud should be dismissed out of hand. But I think you've also started to notice something. A narrative shift. You've seen things start to move a little bit because for the last few weeks, what have we been told? There is no fraud. Absolutely none. Zero. That's interesting. Because now we're starting to see there are definitely irregularities, and there's certainly early stage proof that there was voter fraud. So I think that the change in tone that you can expect, and it's already just beginning to happen, is, okay, fine, there was fraud, but not enough to change the results of the election. Even the Attorney General, Bill Barr, in his statement, speaking on behalf of the DOJ, which he runs, saying that we have not yet found enough fraud to date to overturn the results of the election. That's not the same thing as saying there was no fraud, which is what the left and the Democrats have been claiming all along. Now, I understand this is hyper-partisan at this point. I understand that there are people who view the fate of the country as enmeshed inextricably in this issue. But I also think it's very important, more than anything else, that we get it right and we get the truth. And even if the truth isn't what a lot of us want to hear at this point, even if for many of us it's a disappointment, we need to arrive at that conclusion, and then we need to move on as a country. Well, we're not there yet. We still have quite a ways to go, and that's in evidence at these various hearings that have been had by state legislatures, including yesterday in Lansing, Michigan, where there were people who were coming forward publicly, named individuals. These are not anonymous internet trolls. These are not people that are hiding behind some veil of, oh, I don't want anyone to know my name. No, they're coming forward and they're saying, this is what I saw. And you had hours and hours of this. Now, yes, I understand in Michigan, the separation between Trump and Biden right now is over 100,000 votes. So that's a lot. Even if we find 1,000 votes here or 1,000 votes there, that may not be enough to change the result. But it's important for all of us. It's critical. It's essential that every vote is counted, that is legal, and that we know that that's what happened, and that we have put our system through this stress test and can come out the other side knowing that however this shakes out, the next election, which is going to be on January 5th in Georgia, by the way, the next election is at least secure enough. It's never going to be perfect. Understand that. There's no such thing as an election with paper ballots and mail-in ballots and all this with over 150 million votes cast, where everyone just does exactly what they're supposed to do. But it has to be good enough. Good enough that we have faith in it. Good enough that we don't walk around saying it looks like it was stolen. Because right now, based on just a cursory overview of the facts and figures and the indications of what would have been enough to win in previous years, it certainly looks to a lot of folks like the election was stolen. So we're not just going to pretend that's not happening. We have to look at what's really going on. And when you start to dive into these different cases, you see that there are people who very much believe and are operating in good faith that they saw things that were improper at a minimum. Maybe a mistake, but also very possibly fraudulent. And let's also remember that there is a high degree of culpability. It is the cynicism of Democrats in this election year in using COVID as an excuse to change, in some cases, as we see in Pennsylvania, in likely unconstitutional fashion, to change the way people vote. And now there are problems and irregularities. Well, of course there are. These last-minute changes didn't go through regular process. In fact, some of the changes to the actual process may themselves have been illegal. As I mentioned, Pennsylvania, the most important case in point. And I think that it is going to be overturned by the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania if they take this up. I think that if the whole attention of the country is focused on the Supreme Court on this issue, there's a very good chance that Pennsylvania's results will not be able to be certified as we currently would believe them to be because they changed election law and they were not supposed to do that. But now let's focus in on Michigan. You need to hear, at least, right? The American people need to know what's going on. A lot of major networks, a lot of conservatives aren't even talking about this right now. They've already gone to the move on position. Well, I'm not there. I say we fight to the last day. I say we fight to the last man, the last minute. So let's hear out our fellow citizens, our concerned fellow Americans who believe that they saw fraud, who believe that things in this election were not on the up and up. And I will just tell you this, there's a surprising degree of likeness. There's a tremendous similarity in some of what you're hearing in these different states. Now, maybe that's because of the changes in the process with all the mail-in balloting. So that alone caused there to be these irregularities. I mean, I find that hard to believe, but I'm trying to keep an open mind about all of it. But there are certainly similar things being said about last-minute ballot dumps, about stops in the ballot counting. Did that really happen? Did they match signatures, or did they just decide to wave it all in? Did Democrats, without even having to be told, who were involved in ballot counting, who were involved in this process, recognize that they just wanted to count every vote because they figured that the more they opened the floodgates, the better chances Biden had to win? Somehow not winning these House races, somehow not winning these other state legislative battles in states all across the country. But they are so certain that Biden substantially defeated Trump in these states. I find it hard to believe. Here is a Michigan poll watcher. I'm just giving you this hearing went on for a long time yesterday. So I want to give you some of, I thought, the most poignant moments of it. Here is this Michigan poll watcher talking about people being rejected from the room who were Republicans. Play one.
I am an unaffiliated Michigan voter who was trained by the GOP to be a poll challenger on Wednesday, November 4th, beginning in the late morning until around 8 p.m. because I was told that they needed help. They were understaffed. I witnessed the room erupt in thunderous applause and derogatory cheering as Republican poll workers were picked off one by one and ejected from the room repeatedly by police escort throughout the day. By the end of the day, they had picked off so many GOP poll workers that there were probably only a few dozen left to monitor all of the processing stations in the room, which I'm told was between 130 and 160.
Why would that happen? Is there any reason this guy would lie about this? If he was just doing it for attention, I think he could come up with a better story. But clearly something concerning here. Republican poll watchers pushed away so they can't see. And then there's cheering breaking out. Now, remember, this is, in political terms, enemy territory. Okay, when you're talking about Detroit, when you're talking about Philadelphia, these are 80-20 Democrat districts. These are 80-20 cities where the Democrat machine controls everything. You don't have people coming out and saying that this happened in purple counties outside, the suburbs and the exurbs and all this. You're not having that. At least not the same way. It's in these Democrat strongholds in key states that Biden was going to have to win. Now, I ask you, is the poll watcher, is he making it up? At a minimum, isn't it suspicious? Isn't it concerning that this would happen? Okay. You say, well, Buck, that's one person. Well, no, there were others who said exactly the same thing. They were there to observe the count, and they were made to be so far away that it was impossible for them to observe the count. Here's another Michigan poll challenger yesterday. Play 3.
I was under the impression that as a poll challenger, our primary responsibility is to make sure before a vote is cast that ballot is either in the registered poll book, the computer book, or in the paper poll book, of which anytime as a challenger I tried to look at the ballot and then try to verify it, I would get 2 or 3 of the poll workers literally screaming at me to get back 6 feet. However, we did not know that had been overturned the night before, which would have been helpful. But at no time were we able actually to physically see the ballot and then see it in the poll electronic book. The person opening the ballot would probably be sitting where Senator Theis is, and the electronic screen that we were supposed to be watching is basically to where the committee clerk is. Now, I don't know if you guys got binocular vision, but I don't.
What's the point of a poll watcher if you can't watch the polls? How many people have to come forward with sworn affidavits and firsthand eyewitness accounts of exactly this going on in major Democrat-controlled districts? Now, this could all just be the kind of rough and tumble political melee of the moment, I guess, right? I don't. And by the way, don't yell at me or send me emails like, Buck, how could you believe that? I'm just working through this. I'm looking at all the possibilities. I obviously think something's funky here. I've been saying it's funky for weeks. But it's more than just you and me thinking that something is wrong here. We've got to establish how much wrong, and we've got to be able to prove it. Prove it enough in court that a judge is going to say, everything else, all this, but I know there was fraud. I know there was fraud. Yeah, we all know there was fraud. How much fraud? That's the question that matters. This is not some purity test for whether you believe the Democrats are scummy and Trump should have won this thing. Of course, we can agree on that one. But what do we know and what can we prove? Those are the questions of the moment. That's what we have to get real answers to. And some of what was said in Michigan was particularly concerning. All right, and certainly deserves more scrutiny. I spoke to Matt Brainerd, who's the guy running the Voter Integrity Project. And he told me they're just crunching numbers and they're seeing people out of state voting. They're seeing people who are listed as dead voting. I spoke to Sean Parnell, who I would trust that guy with anything. I would trust Sean Parnell with my life. I'd follow that guy, actually follow him in the battle. He's a good buddy of mine. And he says that they did the random sampling of nursing homes and it looked like the signatures and the handwriting on a whole bunch of ballots was all the same. Now, I know Sean's not making that up. There are a lot of people here that are coming forward with things that are suspicious at a minimum, and the media is just suppressing it. Just suppressing it. They don't care. They got the result they think they want, and that's it. Now they're moving forward to Georgia, and they're going to try to take Georgia, too, in whatever way they can. You and I both know it. Now, here's another allegation from a Michigan hearing witness about military ballots. This was among the most stunning. Play 4.
One of the military ballots was registered voter, and the ballots looked like they were all exactly the same Xerox copies of the ballot. They were all for Biden across the board. There wasn't a single Trump vote, and none of the voters were registered. They had to manually enter the names and addresses and a birth date of 1/1/2020, which would override the system and allow them to enter non-registered voters, of which I saw several that day. Throughout the day, that's how they would override voters that were neither in the electronic poll book or the supplemental updated poll book.
Thank you.
Is she lying? I don't think so. If she is wrong, if she's mistaken, then it's incumbent upon the people that are so sure that everything's fine here to show us that. Is she telling the truth? Yes or no? We need an answer. There's still a lot that we have to find out about this. This is not over. Look, I know it's tough these days. There are a lot of people in your life that you really care about that you're probably not going to get to see over the holiday season because travel's all messed up. There are all these restrictions, all these problems and concerns. But you can still send someone joy through the mail. I'm doing it. In fact, I've sent my girlfriend, I've sent family members flowers from Bloomsy Box. And it's just amazing to see how much they light up when they get them. You know, you can check, they'll send you a Facebook photo, they'll send you something on their phone. You can see, oh, look at that. They love Bloomsy Box. That's a great way to reach out and tell people you're thinking about them, and also just to give them a little bit of a brighter day. Bloomsy Box are simply better blooms. They're incredible, and the price is amazing. These are artisan-designed arrangements that will last a long time. Plus, I got you a special discount. Go to bloomsybox.com and enter promo code BUCK to get 15% off and free shipping. That's Bloomsybox, BLOOMSY, bloomsybox.com. Use promo code BUCK to get 15% off and free shipping. Wasn't just Michigan where there were some pretty bold allegations made this week. Again, in public, named people who have put out sworn affidavits. They're putting all their credibility behind it. They clearly believe what they're saying. They're operating in good faith. There's no reason for them to do this otherwise. There's no benefit to them. No one's going to make them rich or famous because of any of this. Here is a witness in the Arizona hearings, right? Arizona is another place. And you're going to have Nevada in the crosshairs this week for election challenges as well. And I think there's going to be some really stunning stuff presented there based on my sources involved with the Trump election legal effort. But here's what was said in Arizona. Play clip 2.
I kept looking at the screen because it seemed very odd. And in the bottom right-hand corner was a yellow banner. And I got into a position where I could see the yellow banner, which said low confidence. Then I started paying much closer attention to the signatures, thinking this didn't even make sense to me because the signature on the ballot that was being compared to other signatures didn't even resemble in any way what they were comparing it to. They were completely illegible. They were just scribbles on the ballot. And there were 5 screeners screening low confidence ballots for an entire afternoon that I was in there. And I asked Celia what the low confidence said, and she said just not to worry about that, that this was a new program that they were testing.
Scribbles. Don't match the signatures. Doesn't matter. Just scribbles. That's all you need. This is in Arizona. Does that woman sound at all like she's been coached or she's making something up? No. Telling the truth. More from the Arizona hearing. Here, play 5.
The Wednesday before the Friday that we quit voting, so 10 days before they quit tabulating, they thought they were done. And then more truckloads of ballots would come in, and I'm like, how can you not know how many ballots are still out there?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Would you repeat that?
Yeah.
They thought they were done.
They thought they were done
and then there was
times.
There was what?
Multiple times. The people that were running the rooms thought they were done or almost done or were going to be done Wednesday morning, then Thursday morning, then Friday morning. Then it went on the whole next week. And I'm like, I asked the question, I'm like, you don't know how many ballots are still left to come in? So I don't know. I don't know who does, again, process project management.
A lot of sloppiness, a lot of ways that things could have slipped in that shouldn't. Now, we're going to continue to chase all of this down, but I've been saying this all along as well. So we need to manage expectations here. To stop the fraud would have been much easier before Election Day. Ballots can be challenged in advance for places that have early voting and mail-in balloting. There was a lot that could have been done that wasn't done. And once those votes make their way into the general count 'em pile, if you don't have exact chain of custody, very difficult to get rid of them. And the tie is going to go to counting the vote. You and I both know that. So we have to stay on this, and we will. I recently got a crash course in home title theft, and this is something you need to take action against now because it goes after your most valuable asset, your home. Here's how it works. The bad guys, cyber thieves, they find your home's title online because it's stored in the cloud or on servers. Then they use a quit claim deed to kick you off, put themselves on, and take out loans against your home's equity. You often won't find out about this until you receive payment notices in the mail, perhaps even a foreclosure notice. The usual identity theft services do not protect you. You have to go with the experts I trust at Home Title Lock. All you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com, enter the promo code RADIO. That'll get you 30 free days of protection, and you can check at that site to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO. Again, that will get you 30 free days of protection, and you can check online to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't know it yet. You know how you can always tell that there's a problem the Democrats don't want you to find out about? When they start lying about something. When they misrepresent things that you can prove they're lying about, but they don't care. They're just hoping that enough people hear what they say, don't check it, and then it has the required or the desired response, which is to just assume that it must be true. I mean, you should never assume that what Chuck Schumer says is true, but some people do nonetheless. Here is the senator from New York talking about how he claims Bill Barr said there's no evidence of voter fraud. Play 11.
Well, in response to Attorney General Bill Barr, I guess he's the next one to be fired. Since he now, too, says there's no fraud, Trump seems to fire anyone in that regard.
It's not what he said. It's very easy to check this. Attorney General Barr said there's not enough fraud that they have seen to date to overturn the election. That's a very different thing, isn't it? But, they keep playing games with this. They keep pretending that people don't have access to the internet and can't see what was actually said. And a lot of people won't. That's what's so frustrating. There are a lot of people that will just assume that Chuck Schumer's a senator. He wouldn't lie about something so obvious like that, would he? Oh, no, he's Chuck Schumer. He lies. If his mouth is moving, he's probably lying. Well, that's what happens there. And then there's Preet Bharara. This was Obama's hitman going after Dinesh D'Souza. Remember that? Tried to send Dinesh to prison for something that people usually get a fine for. Anyway, he's a big lib, Preet, with no surprise. Started some podcast with his podcasting brother. Now their producers suing them for millions of dollars. I'm sure he's a really good, ethical individual and not some power-mad prosecutor, lib headhunter. Sure. Yeah. But here he is telling you more of the same. Bill Barr, who, let's all be very clear, they tell you it can't be trusted. They said, how much did they spend in the last, let's say, 12 months? How much time when they were talking about Bill Barr was that he was Trump's little throne-shining toady, that he would do anything for Trump, which is a total lie, a total smear of Bill Barr, who I know some of you are frustrated with him with the Durham probe. We're about to talk about the Durham special counsel, huh? A little different. But I think the Attorney General has done a very good job, and I have not forgotten. You got to give people credit where it's due. I have not forgotten that AG Barr got ahead of the hysterical effort to use the slimy smear job of the Mueller report and the 10 possible counts of obstruction. He got ahead of it. He's like, yeah, well, it's our call and there was no obstruction. He diffused that bomb that they threw at this administration. Don't forget that. Because I know right now I'm seeing a lot of people, even people that I like on the right, being very hard on AG Barr. Guys, he's not a miracle worker. All right. Well, he's doing things in accordance with the law, and they hate him. They hate the Attorney General on the left precisely because he's competent and doesn't fly off the handle and doesn't get drawn into the sometimes loose cannon vibe of the Trump team. It's true. It's true. We operate in reality here. So that's why when Preet Bharara, who I think they're considering for Attorney General, at least I've seen rumors to that effect, when Preet Bharara is out there talking about Bill Barr, that they're misrepresenting what's going on. Play 16.
Interestingly, it was a deliberate choice. He has to have known that the president was not going to like it. You see allies of the president are attacking Bill Barr all over the place because it's seen as a betrayal. This is the same man, Bill Barr, who on this network, on CNN, with our colleague Wolf Blitzer, a few months ago basically said, I expect, because common sense tells me so, that thousands and thousands of ballots will be fraudulently filed and sent to the United States from abroad with no proof or evidence whatsoever. And for him to say, in the face of what he knows the president wants and what the president's other lawyers are doing, Rudy Giuliani and et al., I think it's a deliberate thing for him to have done. And I think it tells you how weak the president's arguments are about fraud in all these states.
Notice he doesn't give him any credit. And Bill Barr is 10 times the legal mind that Preet Bharara is. Preet Bharara really made his name by going after rich hedge fund guys and making a big show of it. And he didn't get the really big fish usually. He just would get somebody down the food chain and crush them. Say, look at what a tough guy I am for the Southern District of New York. You know, really like to do the show trial thing. That's who Preet is. And I told you he went after Dinesh D'Souza. Clear political hit job. I mean, Dinesh broke the law and he admits that, but come on. It's a traffic violation. Give me a break. Gave a little extra money to a political campaign. Pay it back, pay a big fine, go about your business, don't do it again. Should be a deferred prosecution even. Anyway, it's outrageous. Outrageous. Oh, and you know who Preet's mentor is? To really understand what we're dealing with, you know who Preet Bharara's mentor is? James Comey. If that lanky, unself-aware, weirdo slimeball is your mentor, you got problems. You got big problems. And remember, Comey was given some really sweet gig, 7-figure gig to be an advisor to a major hedge fund when his little buddy Preet was running the U.S. Attorney's Office, was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, which does those kinds of Wall Street financial prosecutions. That's a great insurance policy to have in your back pocket, isn't it? Pay weirdo Comey $1 million. So his really good. You think his really good buddy is going to investigate the hedge fund that Comey's working for? No, I don't think so. No charges brought against that fund. What a surprise. A lot of other ones had at least investigations. But friends, now you know how the game is played. You're seeing it all around you. You're seeing it. And speaking of Dinesh, I totally agree with. He had a tweet today where he said that you can't figure out what's going on in the world by looking at the news media. So understand that it's on you to figure it out. You know, and I would tell you, listen to this show, read as many different sites and authors, and you know, you're creating a mosaic every day in your own mind of what's going on. That's what you should be doing. Don't trust any one source, any one site. You know, some people you should trust a lot more than others, but you should always be looking for various perspectives and opinions, and even beyond that, facts. There's an editorial process for what facts are presented to you more than others. How many of you could tell me, for example, off the top of your heads, and I don't say this as any sort of a criticism, I was doing a deep dive into this earlier in the week, so I was looking at it. You know that there are major cities in this country where they've already had 30, 40, almost 50% of small businesses closed, perhaps never to open again? San Francisco, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Chicago, Boston, New York. 30, 40, going up to 50%. Small businesses gone. They coming back? Maybe, some, who knows? Right? But that's not a figure you see a lot. What do you see every day? Oh my gosh, the COVID cases are higher and higher and higher. Yes, the panic porn in the media, that you see all the time. The consequences of the lockdowns that don't actually have the benefits that they promise, that don't protect us in the way that's advertised. You don't see that, do you? The editorializing of which facts to present and which facts to suppress. Now, some good news about the Attorney General. I'll spend some time on with you now. I have been critical, or I should say perhaps cynical, about the prospects of the Durham probe to find real justice. Remember, the Durham probe was set up within the DOJ to look at the Russia collusion hoax, which that's what it was, to look at the Russia collusion hoax top to bottom and see if there was any criminality and produce a full report on just what happened there. Right? Okay. I had said that the bureaucracy will protect itself, but also in the back of my mind, I had always thought there's a very real chance that if you get a Democrat administration, they're just going to slow roll and then slowly kill that investigation. I mean, they'll just drain it of resources. All the things they said Trump was going to do about the Mueller probe that he didn't do, including just shutting it down, a Democrat, in this case a Biden administration, would do. So that was always a possibility that I had in the back of my mind, and that's why I felt like there was a clock on this one. But Attorney General Bill Barr, he's a savvy cat. And this is not his first rodeo in D.C. Remember, he was the Attorney General before, under George H.W. Bush, a long time ago. So he knows what's going on. And he has come up with something that's going to be very upsetting for the libs. Very upsetting for the Democrats. A special counsel designation. He is the Attorney General, and he can do this. Ah, yes. A special counsel designation of the Durham probe. What this means is that they can't just make this thing easily disappear without showing everybody what a bunch of frauds and hypocrites and liars the Democrats are. Now, that does not mean they're unwilling to do that. But at least now it's like the tripwires, it's like the claymores are put in place, so to speak. If they decide to shut down this investigation, it will cause a political explosion, because what were we told for years by Democrats during the Mueller special counsel? Not only is it wrong if Trump were to shut it down, but the very thought of shutting it down was impeachable. And had he shut it down, which he did not do, he should have been impeached and removed from office on that alone. On that alone. That's corruption, the kind of corruption that should get you as a president removed from office. Very clearly established that standard. There's no question. They absolutely set that in stone. They can't walk away from it now. They might try, but they can't. And so with that, I say to you, now they are going to have to deal with what we did. A dogged prosecutor. I do not believe that Durham is a partisan in all this, and so his findings may be somewhat disappointing. I also still stand behind my initial assessment, my initial prediction, that it's unlikely you'll see James Comey or any of the rest of them frog marched out of their homes or offices in handcuffs. I don't think you'll see that happen. But you could. Now there's a special counsel. It could get ugly out there. And remember, there are people who are tied very much into the Obama orbit and the Obama administration who are at issue in Russia collusion, who, if not back under a Biden administration, if it happens, I'm just looking into the future here, if they're not back under a Biden administration, would certainly be let's just say a PR blow for the Biden team if top Obama people ended up having at least the referral of criminal charges against them for the hoax they perpetrated with Russia collusion and the usage of the FBI and the intelligence community apparatus to go after and prosecute a political opponent, which is what they did to Donald Trump and his top advisors and his associates. That is what happened. Don't ever forget it. They will lie to you. They will gaslight you. They will pretend that you're crazy for saying it. They used the deep state apparatus of Hillary supporters within the government to try and stop the Trump administration, shut it down, get him thrown out of office, prosecute him, ruin his life. That's what they did. They cheated and lied to get there. And now with the designation of Durham as a special counsel, there's at least some chance I could be wrong, and this may be worthwhile after all. Now for the other side of this reality of the deep state and Comey and whether there'll be any justice. I often say this to you because it's true and it's important. There are some cultural differences between the right and the left, in particular in how we treat those on our side who fight the good fight, at least from our perspective, right? On the right, if you're a conservative and you go out there and you make the case and you get chewed up, you're General Flynn, you're any number of people who have been attacked for being Trump supporters. You're Sarah Sanders having lunatics scream at you in restaurants and all this stuff. And then you leave the administration and you're looking for a job. There are only a few places you can go. Why is that? On the left, when you fight the good fight for their side, so that means the dirty, underhanded, and evil fight, but when you do what they need you to do, when you're James Comey, what happens to you? Do you get arrested? Do you even get criminally investigated? Even though you leaked documents to the New York Times that you took in your capacity as an FBI director and a sit down with the President of the United States and should have been marked classified, but you said weren't marked classified, so therefore you just get away with the whole thing? You know what happens to you? You get a 7-figure book deal, you get 6-figure speaking gigs, and a prestigious and I'm sure well-compensated teaching job at Columbia University Law School, one of the 5 best law schools in the country. What's James Comey going to teach? Sanctimonious nonsense from a deep state superstar? I mean, probably. But you see, there's a message sent here. If you do the Democrats' dirty work, anybody working in the government right now, anyone who's supposed to be a nonpartisan civil servant, if you're willing to leak that stuff that takes down a Republican, if you're willing to follow in the footsteps of Comey, protect a Democrat from prosecution like Hillary Clinton, who should have faced criminal charges for what she did with her email server, if you do all those things, they'll take care of you. We need to come to grips with this. We need to understand that this happens. The left takes care of its ideological soldiers. They do. They're assassins, they're hitmen, whatever you want to call them. They take care of them. They always land on their feet. Good jobs, board seats, speaking gigs, books, or just, a consulting gig, whatever it may be. On the right, we have all these conservative businessmen. You know what they say when I try to talk to them and say, why don't you hire some of these people? They say, I like my business. I don't want to get boycotted. This is one of the reasons the left gets away with what it does and why we have a tough time beating them.